Taskmaster Season 20 has announced its lineup. We now know the 5 comedians who'll be going head-to-head in a bid to win Greg's majestic golden head. They are Ania Magliano, Maisie Adam, Phil Ellis, Reece Shearsmith and Sanjeev Bhaskar. We're here to run through who they are, maybe you haven't seen them before, maybe you have, and give some early predictions on who we think might do well. So Patrick, we know the lineup now for Taskmaster Season 20. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that we're coming off one of the kind of most popular lineups we've seen on Taskmaster. For my money, possibly the best in the Channel 4 era. So expectations are now really high. My first thought is that this is going to be a slightly different kind of lineup. I think there's, a different kind of variety of performers that we're seeing this season as opposed to the most recent run. I think there's a lot to look forward to. Some very well known names from the comedy world, some people that a lot of people won't have heard of at all. So it's a mixture between some kind of known quantities, perhaps knowing a little bit of what to expect, and then also into the unknown.
Into the unknown with Taskmaster, no, absolutely. I think there's a really nice quirk about this particular lineup as well. In the studio, they'll be sitting in alphabetical order by first name, as they always do. But this year, there'll also be an age order. So Ania will be the youngest, up to Sanjeev, who's the oldest. And they're all in a different decade of their life as well. So Ania's in her 20s, Maisie's 30s, Phil 40s, Reece 50s, and Sanjeev 60s. So there's a full kind of spread of comedy ages and experience in the comedy world too.
Yeah, and that's quite fun just to see how the kind of different generations will mesh. I think, just mentioning this most recent season and how well they kind of just got on with each other, but they were all kind of roughly in the same kind of age group, not exactly the same, but within kind of 15 years or so of each other. Whereas, as you say, this is much kind of bigger variation of ages, so that'll be interesting.
Excited to see how it plays out. Right, we're going to run through who they are now. So in seat number 1, we've got Ania Magliano. So Ania is a stand-up comedian and comedy writer. She first started comedy around about the end of the 2010s as a student. Since then, she's gone on to win a couple of awards. She's crafted 2 full stand-up sets, which she's performed at the Edinburgh Fringe and elsewhere, both very widely acclaimed. Her writing work is probably where people may know her better than her actual kind of TV work. TV-wise, she's been on things like Richard Osman's House of Games. She's done Live at the Apollo as well, but she's sort of starting off on her comedy career. Writing-wise, she's written for Frankie Boyle's New World Order. She's written for the Emily Atack Show, The Now Show on Radio 4. She'll probably be best known for co-writing a lot of the Chicken Shop Date series with a former Taskmaster New Year's Treat contestant, Amelia de Moldenberg. So if you go onto one of Amelia's Chicken Shop YouTube videos, or even her cooking show YouTube videos, it might have been co-written by Ania. And actually, I think there's a kind of a through line between the comedy of Ania and Amelia. You can definitely tell they've written and worked a lot with each other. She has a podcast as well called A Bisexual and a Boyfriend. So she's someone who won't be as familiar to a lot of the viewers, but will kind of be exposed to a much greater viewership now she's on Taskmaster. Next to her will be Maisie Adam. Maisie will be more familiar to a lot of TV viewers. She first got into comedy about 10 years ago, roughly a decade ago, as a stand-up. Since then, she has absolutely done the panel show circuit on TV extensively. I was trying to think if there's a panel show that Maisie hasn't been on. She's done QI, Would I Lie to You, Have I Got News for You, 8 out of 10 Cats, and Cats Does Countdown. So she's a very popular face on TV. She's a stand-up as well. Her recent Appraisal stand-up is available to watch on Sky and Now, which is well worth a watch if you want to get a sense of her comedy. She's also done quite a lot of work in the sports and comedy world too. So she co-hosts a podcast with Susie Ruffle on women's football called, and I'll take this slowly, Big Kick Energy, made it, which is very good, worth a listen to. She's also done a lot of work with the Sky panel show A League of Their Own and various iterations of that in the sport and football world. And also she has a Taskmaster connection too, because she takes part in the annual charity football match that Alex Horne throws at Cheshire United. So she is one of the footballers who takes part there. So very competitive, looking forward to seeing Maisie on Taskmaster. And in seat number 3 next to Maisie is Phil Ellis. So Phil is a stand-up comedian and performer. He first came to prominence with a show at the Edinburgh Fringe back in 2014 called Funs and Games. Now, Funs and Games was ostensibly a kids' show. In reality, though, it was mostly for the adults. So the kids took part, super anarchic, all over the place, became a real cult hit. He's brought it back to the Edinburgh Fringe a few times as well, including this year in 2025. Since then, he's gone to the Fringe every year with a different show. He hasn't done a huge amount of TV. He has appeared on Comedy Central's Roast Battle, where he took on a former Taskmaster contestant, Johnny Vegas. And he's also done some acting work. He was in an episode of There She Goes, the David Tennant's comedy drama. Mostly his work has been done on radio. So he had a series called Phil Ellis is Trying on BBC Radio 4 with Johnny Vegas and Lolly Adefope, another Taskmaster contestant. So he will be an unknown quantity, I think, to a lot of viewers. But he's been around in the comedy scene now for quite a while. So I think he's going to bring quite a lot to Taskmaster. So I'm going to pass the baton over to you now. Tell us about who's in seat number 4, Reece Shearsmith.
Yeah, seat number 4. So from, I guess, one of the least well-known Taskmaster contestants to one of the best known, I think it's fair to say, Reece Shearsmith. He's a huge name on British TV, going back to League of Gentlemen, and then Cycleville, and then more recently Inside Number 9. All 3 of those he has collaborated with a former Taskmaster contestant in Steve Pemberton. And yeah, he's he does it all. He's a writer, performer, and got a very kind of unique, twisted sense of humour at times, which has certainly come to the fore in all 3 of those previous shows. So it'll be interesting to see how that manifests on Taskmaster. I think certainly when it comes to creative tasks, we'll be seeing a lot of interesting things there. But he's also a big figure in films. He's collaborated quite a few times with the director Ben Wheatley in a couple of folk horror films, so perhaps less on the comedic side there. And he's been seen in some really big films. Saltburn was a recent one that he was in, and more recently than that, even he voiced Norbot in the most recent Wallace and Gromit,
Icon,
which aired over Christmas. Yeah, so you can't ask for a better CV there. Yeah, but yeah, he is someone that perhaps people will look at first and foremost as a comic actor when they see him, but he is, of course, a prolific writer as well, and so it'll be interesting to see how he brings that into Taskmaster. And then in seat number 5, another comedy legend in the form of Sanjeev Bhaskar, who most recently fans will probably most recognise him for his dramatic work on the cold case mystery ITV drama Unforgotten, which is, I guess kind of introduced him to a different audience than he might originally have been familiar with back when he started in the 90s and the noughties, when he kind of really established himself as a big name in the comedy world with the Kumars and Goodness Gracious Me, and yeah, he was kind of, I guess, a pioneering figure for South Asian representation in comedy, and yeah, he's a comedy legend. He also has done presenting work. He's made acting appearances in a load of other films and TV shows. He's in the Paddington movies in quite a small role, but even a small role in a Paddington movie is worth mentioning, I think. Yeah, and yeah, he's also, an interesting fact, kind of authority on the subject of Elvis Presley. He's a massive fan of Elvis, knows everything there is to know about him. So perhaps we might see an Elvis costume.
Oh, let's hope so.
But I certainly imagine it will come up, his love for Elvis, on the show.
Nice. Okay, right. So that's who they are. I think it's probably a good idea of sort of just giving a sense of how well known they are in the comedy scene. We know a lot of people watch these videos who aren't in the UK, so won't have heard of any of them. I think it's fair to say, like Reece and Sanjeev, comedy legends at this point, their kind of place in the comedy pantheon is well assured at this point. Yeah,
they're definitely the people in this lineup that you'll be most likely to have heard of, even if you're not kind of keeping up to date with the British comedy scene. They're kind of just, I guess, TV celebrities, whether it's comedy or not now.
Yeah.
They're very recognisable faces who've, as you say, been, proven that they've got longevity on the scene as well. They've kind of not really been away from our screens too much since the 90s, either of them. So yeah, they're certainly the kind of better known of the 5.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think if you're a TV comedy fan, you'll know Maisie Adam as well. You'll have seen her a lot of panel shows, you'll know her face. To the extent that you actually may have thought she's been on Taskmaster already. That's kind of the extent that it's been there. So I think she's a popular figure. I think Ania, if you're a fan of live comedy and you go to gigs and stand up, you'll be familiar with her on the scene. She gigs extensively. You'll have seen her on a comedy bill, maybe doing a work in progress somewhere. Phil is someone who, and I say this with all the love in the world, because I love the man and he's going to be brilliant on Taskmaster, 97% of the audience on Channel 4 probably won't know who Phil is. And that's a great place to be as a performer, because you think back to some of the Taskmaster contestants of old, no one would have, like most comedy fans may not have heard of some of them. So most people maybe wouldn't have been familiar with like Wozniak or Sam Campbell or Rose Matafeo.
Yeah,
The
John
kind of-
Kearns, another one as well.
John Kearns, yeah. So if you're a diehard comedy fan, you know who these people are. TV viewers wouldn't have been familiar. So I think Phil has a real opportunity to become like the breakout star of the season.
And that is it's always been one of the joys of Taskmaster, isn't it? Seeing these people that you know kind of, I was going to say know inside out, but maybe not know inside out, but know kind of really well, alongside people who are, you know, not necessarily just getting started. He's been around, as you say, for a long time, but kind of getting exposed to a new audience for the first time. And there's that element of discovery, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, and it's credit to Alex Horn and the producers for keeping that going season after season. Right, predictions time.
Right.
Hit me with who you think is going to do well on this season.
Right, no pressure, but I did. Last time I predicted that Matthew Bainton would do well, and I think the results speak for themselves. So I don't want to say that I'm Nostradamus and setting myself up for a fall, but I've got a feeling that Sanjeev Bhaskar will do well. He's got a kind of wisdom to him, I think, which I think will come in handy. Certainly when it comes to, I just think I can imagine him going into a room and assessing all the options and kind of spotting some of the shortcuts, perhaps, and not getting too flustered. And also, he's obviously, you know, a creative mind, so I think when it comes to those kind of tasks, he'll also do well. He seems quite level-headed.
He's measured, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I think that will stand him in good stead.
These absolutely famous last words. He's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. Walk into the first task and just be running around.
Curse. I might tip Maisie Adam to do well. Like I said before, she is very competitive. She's obviously big into sports. I think she'll know the show really well too, and I think she'll commit to the bit. I think she'll go for it. Now that might not go well as well. I think it's going to want to go one of two ways with Maisie Adam. She's going to go brilliantly, or it's going to be a car crash.
Yeah.
I'm going to go brilliantly. I've got faith in Maisie. She's going to do well. So I'm going to tip Maisie to win. Who do you think might not do so well? Who are you tipping for, like, Greg to take against or mark down, give 1 point?
Well, I did mention previously that I thought Reece Shearsmith would be good at the creative tasks, and I'm not going to back down from that. I think he, as we've seen with all the creative output he's done, he's going to come up with some brilliant, strange, weird, very Taskmastery ideas. I've got a feeling in some of the more kind of running around frantically tasks, he's going to get very frustrated. And I think that frustration might end up getting a few kind of 1 points and 2 points, and that might then tip over, and he kind of just gets more and more, frustrated and annoyed, and might then end up clashing with Greg. And, I've got a feeling that could end up with him sitting towards the bottom. That said, Steve Pemberton, his close colleague, did pretty well when he was on it. So maybe, but they've got slightly different personas. They're not, they've worked a lot together, but they're not the same. And I can see Reece just getting a little bit frustrated.
Maybe Reece has learnt from Steve. Maybe he's taken the learnings. Who's going to do badly? I don't know. I think Phil Ellis might be very fun to watch and all over the place. I hope so anyway. I hope it's really going to go full out, which might, go badly for him.
Yeah.
For us, badly for him.
I guess the thing is that you can go all out and be a bit like, there's been times, in the most recent season, watching Matthew Bainton and thinking he's all over the place what he's doing, and then he'll come up with a brilliant result. So franticness and kind of being a bit all at sea can sometimes work in your favour in Taskmaster as well.
Absolutely. Right, that's it. Those are our thoughts on Taskmaster Season 20. Let us know what you think of the lineup in the comments below. Who do you think is going to do well? Who are you most excited for seeing on the show? And stick with us on Radio Times for more Taskmaster content soon. Bye.